Those common traits of people who live to 100 aren't quite what you think. You're sitting there picturing it. A bright-eyed 100-year-old smiling in a lush vegetable garden, sipping celery juice, surrounded by grandkids, with 0 cigarettes, 0 booze, nothing but organic produce and gentle morning walks. That's the picture everyone loves to paint. The celebrated secrets we've all heard 1,000 times. Strict vegetarian eating, steady exercise, early bed and early rise, a clear sense of purpose, and rock-solid community ties. But that beautiful image, it's one of the biggest illusions out there. After decades digging through the largest cohort studies and watching real people up close, I've seen clearly that these widely praised common traits aren't as good as we assume. In fact, they often hide a startling truth. Plenty of people who reach 100 carried habits that modern medicine still calls harmful. And some of those popular secrets have been steering us in the wrong direction about what actually drives longevity. Picture opening a book on the blue zones, those legendary spots like Okinawa, Sardinia, and Nicoya, where we're told folks hit triple digits thanks to plant-heavy diets, lifelong manual labor, and tight-knit communities. It sounds inspiring. But the deeper you look, the more cracks appear. You'll meet centenarians who smoked steadily since youth, poured themselves a glass of local wine every evening, ate red meat without apology, and never stepped foot in a gym, just puttered around the house doing everyday chores. These aren't rare oddballs. They're part of the bigger picture. And here's the wild part. Many of them outlived the people who followed every modern, healthy lifestyle rule to the letter. Why? Because the real common threads don't sit on the surface we keep staring at. We've fallen into a loop of flawed assumptions. Eat clean, and you'll live forever. So when we spot a centenarian who doesn't eat perfectly, yet still thrives, we shrug and say, "Must be good genes," and move on. But genes aren't the full story, and those surface-level traits have been quietly misleading us in the subtlest ways. I've spotted this contradiction everywhere in the hard data. Take Sardinia. Many centenarians still enjoy rich sheep cheese and local wine daily. No meat-free days required. In Okinawa, some smoked lightly their whole lives without the lung cancer we'd predict. In Nicoya, plenty reached 100 on diets that included refined grains and animal protein, the exact things modern nutrition books warn against. Meanwhile, in developed countries, people obsessing over low-carb plans, 5 gym sessions a week, and mindfulness apps are dying earlier than expected, often from the stress of trying so hard to live right. That's not random. The traits we celebrate, eat less, move more, stay social, have been blown up into something almost magical, while the real drivers hide underneath. We view centenarians through our modern lens of fear. Fear of disease, fear of aging, fear of death. But centenarians don't live in fear. They live in ways their bodies can handle, not the rigid rules we try to force on everyone. And here's the real shock. If those surface traits were truly the golden ticket, why do study after study now question the blue zones themselves? Those super centenarian hotspots often line up with places that had sloppy birth and death records, high poverty and pension fraud. Okinawa's government found in 2010 that over 82% of people listed as 100 plus had actually died years earlier. In Greece, pension checks revealed 72% of claimed centenarians were either dead or never existed. Demographer Saul Justin Newman at Oxford to the 2024 Ig Nobel Prize for showing that age heaping, birthdays clustered on the first or multiples of 5, shows up in every blue zone, a classic sign of bad paperwork or outright cheating. Not everything is fake, but enough is shaky to make you wonder, are the common traits we see in magazines real science, or just feel-good stories that sell books, supplements, and wellness tours? The more I look, the clearer it gets that we've been chasing a collective fantasy. We assume longevity comes from a perfect lifestyle, so we ignore that many centenarians survived wars, famine, and epidemics with zero healthy habits. Just an uncanny biological resilience that not everyone inherits, no matter how hard they copy the checklist. Today's young people chase those same traits: cutting sugar, cutting carbs, running marathons, joining support circles, thinking it's the key. But that very striving often creates new stress, the anxiety of never being healthy enough. Centenarians didn't live that way. They didn't try to live forever. They just lived on their own rhythm, sometimes with habits we'd label bad. Some ate heartily, stayed up late, kept their social circle small, and still thrived because their bodies adapted in ways science hasn't fully explained yet. That's where the belief starts to crumble. These common traits aren't a recipe you can photocopy. They're a mirror reflecting how badly we've misunderstood longevity. We think they're good because they're easy to see, easy to sell, and easy to comfort ourselves with. But they're masking something deeper: genes, evolutionary pressures, and biological paradoxes that no self-help book dares to touch. Let's get specific with the numbers that keep surprising me. In the 2011 Ashkenazi Jewish centenarian study at Yeshiva University, researchers compared 477 people aged 95 to 109 against folks from the same generation who died earlier. Nearly 30% of the centenarian women had smoked more than 100 packs in their lifetime, almost the same as the control group at 26%. For men, 60% of centenarians smoked versus 75% in the shorter-lived group. No statistically meaningful difference. Daily drinking? About the same rate in both groups. They ate fried foods, red meat, and skipped formal exercise. Same story in the Dutch 100-plus study. 67% of cognitively healthy male centenarians had smoked regularly or heavily for most of their lives. A 2024 nested case control study in China with 1,454 centenarians versus 3,768 who died before 100 found that not smoking raised odds by 25%, exercise by 31%, and a varied diet by 23%. But alcohol showed no strong link, and BMI didn't matter at all. Yet in Sardinia and Okinawa, plenty of centenarians smoked lightly their whole lives without lung cancer. European cohort data even shows moderate wine drinkers, 1 to 2 glasses a day, had up to 36% higher odds of reaching 90, especially women. Meanwhile, the latest 2023 meta-analyses say even low alcohol raises cancer risk. The data keeps contradicting itself, and that tension tells me we're missing the real picture. Now zoom out to the blue zones again. Dan Buettner famously listed 9 traits: mostly plant-based eating, 20% calorie cut, moderate wine, natural movement, purpose, stress reduction, community, family first, and positive social circles. Sounds like the perfect formula, but recent demographic deep dives show those zones overlap heavily with poor record-keeping, poverty, and pension scams. Newman's work proved age-heaping everywhere. Yet Stephen Austad and Giovanni Pes, who helped identify Sardinia as a blue zone, pushed back hard in 2025, arguing they validated every case through church records, military files, elections, and in-person interviews. And the survival rates to 90+ still stand out after cleaning the data. Both sides make strong points. The tension is real, and it shakes the whole foundation we've built our beliefs on. The popular misunderstandings keep compounding the problem. We assume centenarians eat mostly plants, keep calories low, move constantly, avoid all tobacco and alcohol, chase big purpose, like Ikigai, and stay glued to tight communities. Reality keeps pushing back. In Sardinia, they regularly ate fatty sheep cheese and local red meat. In Okinawa, some enjoyed pork and refined grains without counting calories. They ate according to natural hunger in a historically poor environment. We slap today's optimization mindset on people who lived in completely different conditions, then wonder why copying the list leaves us exhausted, hormonally off, or trapped in orthorexia, the obsessive fear of unhealthy food. On movement, we picture them constantly active, gardening, walking for hours. Many actually just did light chores around the house, never hitting any WHO exercise quota. They thrived not because of deliberate workouts, but because early life hard labor built lasting resilience that modern desk workers simply don't have. We turn exercise into a daily prescription, then beat ourselves up when joints ache or burnout hits. The result? People who look healthy on paper, but feel drained in real life. On abstinence, the myth that centenarians never smoke or drink is the most misleading of all. Plenty did, lightly, steadily, and still reached 100. We panic at any risk, turning life into constant anxiety. Studies show people chasing perfect cleanliness often end up more isolated and depressed because they've traded joy for fear. Even purpose and community don't match the story. Many centenarians in later years lived relatively quietly, without grand ikigai or non-stop social events. Their purpose was often just getting through the day with acceptance. We build artificial support groups and retreats trying to manufacture connection, only to feel emptier when it doesn't deliver the promised magic. All these misunderstandings turn longevity into a competition. We buy supplements, track every metric, chase blue zone retreats, and then feel like failures at 70 or 80. But if the traits were the real key, why do so many strict followers die earlier while rule breakers keep going? We're using backward logic, seeing survivors and assuming their habits caused it, while ignoring the brutal natural selection. Only bodies with extraordinary repair capacity made it through wars, poverty, and disease. The deeper I go into the biology, the more fascinating the paradoxes become. Many centenarians seem to turn what we call stressors into signals of strength, a concept called hormesis. Low doses of things like moderate wine or light nicotine exposure can gently activate protective pathways like NRF2, ramping up antioxidant enzymes, DNA repair, and clearing damaged cells. Their mitochondria leak fewer free radicals to begin with, so they don't waste energy fighting constant fires. Inflammation, the chronic inflammaging that ages most of us, gets resolved faster in centenarians. They produce resolvins and protectins quickly, quieting inflammatory signals without outside help. Their blood protein profiles often look younger than typical 80-year-olds. Even when they eat fatty meats or cheese, their gut microbiomes stay rich in beneficial bacteria like Akkermansia that strengthen the intestinal barrier and cut systemic inflammation. Hormone and nutrient-sensing pathways flip the script too. Centenarians often show lower IGF-1 and insulin signaling not from strict fasting or low-carb diets, but from naturally high insulin sensitivity, even with carbs or occasional wine. Variants in SIRT6 genes, more common in some centenarian groups, boost DNA repair and autophagy, the cell's recycling system, without overdoing it. Their telomeres shorten as expected, yet repair mechanisms keep pace. The microbiome in centenarians stays diverse longer, with more firmicutes and verrucomicrobia that support gut-brain signaling and keep cortisol flexible. Not chronically low, but responsive in healthy rhythms. They still accumulate some senescent cells and clonal mutations like everyone else, but they maintain functional reserve far longer, thanks to balanced FOXO, mTOR, and NRF2 activity. None of this works in isolation. It's a networked system I've come to call built-in resilience. The body doesn't avoid stress. It learns to use small amounts as training signals. That's why forcing modern, perfect lifestyles can sometimes weaken the very pathways that helped centenarians survive. When I place all of this in an evolutionary lens, the picture sharpens even more. Humans didn't evolve in air-conditioned comfort with constant calories and blue light 24/7. Our ancestors lived through feast-famine cycles, intense physical work for survival, temperature swings, and periodic infections. Genes that promote longevity, like FOXO3 variants, were selected because they helped people survive long enough to raise grandchildren after menopause, the grandmother hypothesis. Centenarians today often carry that inherited toolkit. Their early lives mirrored that ancient rhythm: seasonal food scarcity, natural movement tied to chores, sleep synced to sunrise and sunset. Blue zones weren't sterile wellness paradises. They were rugged rural places where exposure to soil microbes, natural light, and mild seasonal stress kept immune systems and circadian clocks tuned the old-fashioned way. Socially, too, their communities looked more like small hunter-gatherer bands, contributing according to ability, balancing connection with independence, nothing like our forced online tribes or mandatory wellness groups. All of this creates the ultimate scientific tension. One side of the research celebrates blue zone lifestyles as proven. The other side, led by Newman's demographic work, says many numbers are inflated by bad records. Ostad and Pez counter that after rigorous validation, the longevity edge holds. Smoking and drinking rates match or exceed controls in some studies, yet other data show moderate wine linked to better odds. Meat eaters in lean Chinese cohorts sometimes outlived vegetarians. Cholesterol levels flip between zones. Genetics explain 50 to 60% of reaching 100, yet many centenarians had bad habits identical to people who died younger. Observational data screams reverse causation. Randomized and genetic studies show mixed risks. The contradictions don't cancel each other out. They point to something deeper. After traveling through all these layers, everything flips in the most subtle, powerful way. Those common traits we've been praising still matter, but not as the checklist we thought. They're not surface behaviors to copy. Eat plants, move naturally, connect constantly. The real shared thread is something internal, the quiet ability to accept imperfection and adapt without forcing anything. Centenarians didn't obsess over healthy. They ate according to real hunger, sometimes including meat, wine, or a cigarette, without creating extra stress from guilt or measurement. They moved when life required it, and rested when their bodies said so. No quotas, no pain, no gain. They used mild stressors like occasional wine as part of life, never turning them into enemies or saviors. Their sense of purpose was often just simple daily acceptance, not a grand mission. Their communities were natural, sometimes quiet, never manufactured. The deepest common trait I've observed is that built-in resilience, the capacity to turn real-life stress into repair signals, to live without adding a second layer of fear-driven control. They survived because they didn't fight their own biology. They let it do what it had been shaped to do over thousands of generations. That's the nuance that changes everything. We've been wrong on the surface, but right at the core, just not in the way we imagined. Centenarians aren't models to imitate. They're mirrors showing us how much energy we waste chasing perfection. Longevity isn't something we conquer with willpower. It's something that happens when we stop trying so hard and let our own bodies, genes, and real environment do the work they were built for. I'm a health expert and longtime researcher. Everything I've shared here is simply my personal observations and perspective from years of studying the data. I don't teach, I don't advise, and I don't hand out lessons. I only question, point out contradictions, and share what I've clearly seen. And if you're still curious, as I still am after all these years, next time we'll look at something that flows straight from this paradox. Why so many people stay strong into their 90s only to decline sharply in the final months, and what that reveals about the true nature of survival. The data is eye-opening, the mechanisms are rarely discussed, and the new paradoxes are just emerging. Let's keep peeling back the layers, because only when we go all the way through do we reach the observations science is still hesitant to say out loud. That's where the real fascination begins.